So with that, we're going to start with our questions. Off that, are there any plans to reopen Colby Trail in the near future? John, I'm first going to ask, have you done some of the, were you involved in some of that assessment of the Colby Trail, at least?
That entire trail system, though, is not administered by the Angeles National Forest. It's on a mixture of other private, county, maybe state lands, and so the National Forest does not have any jurisdiction on that trail. We identified it as being a significant risk to the public. Again, during the summer for rockfall, the trail is in terrible condition with the dry rubble, and then if the storm hit, the people out there are at great risk. But again, we don't administer that.
And very little of it is on any sort of public area. And we have personally notified the property owners where that trail does go through. We've given them, there was an assessment report done, I want to say late March, early April, that talked about that and let them know that they probably should either take steps to limit access or take steps to get that property or that area stabilized. But it sustained some pretty heavy damage and it's just really unsafe. So I don't have any idea when that effort may be undertaken by those private property owners. But right now it is closed just because it's a safety hazard. Oh, Garcia, yeah. Oh, Colby Trail. I'm sorry. I even. Well, again, I think we're waiting on the Conservancy. It's on the Glendora Conservancy area property. I think that they are taking efforts to plan some improvements off that. And at this point, I haven't heard any more from Ann Croissant of any time schedule, but we will try to find out some information from her organization off that. This is a four-part question. Is there any danger of structure damage due to landslides? Who wants to try that one?
I guess that would be me.
All right.
With that being said, you live at the base of the San Gabriel Mountains. So landsliding happens in the San Gabriel Mountains. It's how that landscape evolves. It's rising so rapidly that the slopes are steep in elevation. So landsliding certainly could be an issue. It's nothing that we can, it's not something that we're able to predict at this point. I would expect during an earthquake, a major earthquake, there could be severe landsliding all over the San Gabriel. And if you're at the base of it, that could definitely be a problem. During a long duration rainstorm, the chances of landsliding certainly increase. Mark's talking about another area possibly. You get an atmospheric river, so you just get pounded in rain over a week, 2 weeks. That certainly increases the risk of landsliding. So it's something to be aware of and to be concerned of. And certainly a landslide could happen. The probability of that is much lower than the close fire reflows.
Dennis, I'm going to ask you to come up here because there's three more questions having to do with this. How far down does danger extend, to whatever extent?
The sort of the horizontal extent of the influence of debris flows, I'm going to speak specifically on debris flows. It depends on many factors. It depends on how full the debris basins are. The public works in Los Angeles is one of the best in the world. They've had a lot of history designing those debris basins, so they know what to expect in terms of a volume. If you get multiple storms stacked up on top of one another, things could spill out of the basin. It's happened before. Hopefully it won't happen again. So once that happens, it's as much water and debris there is determines the sort of the lateral extent of what the impact could be. I think the Public Works has also done a really good job of defining their different inundation areas. So that's one thing I would certainly look up, and they'd probably be better versed at explaining those than I would, their inundation zones.
Don't go too far. How high or deep may a landslide or debris water flow become?
Again, that really depends on how much rain has fallen, how long it's been raining, and the characteristics of how big the drainage basin is up above you. So there's lots of factors that determine it. On our depth is a really particularly difficult thing to predict. But on our website that was in my talk, if you go to the USGS Landslide Hazards Program website and go to the hazard section, you can find our maps. We do have estimates of a total volume of material. And then you can compare those to what the debris basin capacity is in the models maybe that Public Works has for estimating volumes. And that'll give you a better sense of what you're protected from. But they can be anything from a small thing during a little event like we had back in February, a 1 to 2 year recurrence, 1 to 3 year recurrence of a rainstorm, very small debris flows way up above the basins. But if we had something like the Mount Baldy storm, it could be a monster that could come down through there.
All right, that's it. That's it. Stay close. I imagine we'll be going back. The final question was, does government or private insurance companies offer landslide insurance for structures and belongings? I'm not aware of any government, but what I will do is we have a Q&A sheet on our Colby Fire page, and we'll get an answer for you on that under our Q&A sheet. So whoever wrote that, if you can look maybe in 2 or 3 days, and we'll have an answer to that question out there. The next one is, I think it's, when will sandbags be available?
We already have sandbags available out at our street yard. You're welcome to come and pick them up now. And we're having weekly deliveries of several thousand over the next month and a half. So we also have quite a bit of sand out there, and our staff will make them if we need extra.
Just a reminder, until we get really close to a rain, it's really important to keep those bags covered and out of the sun. And that's what deteriorates the bag, and they don't become useful at that point. When will debris be cleaned from the concrete crib on Rainbow Drive? Pat?
The concrete crib on Rainbow, again, it's a stream stabilizer structure. The soil behind that crib dam is supposed to remain there in order for that stabilizer to be able to perform its function. So in short, the crib dam structure is not going to have sediment removed from behind the crib structure.
Excuse me, I wrote that question. It's not on top, it's in front of the crib.
There's a bunch of wood,
Heavy wood that came
burned
down.
wood and
Target.
Oh.
Send somebody out there, so it's not the center.
We'll pass that on to our flood maintenance personnel.
And not really a question, but a compliment, Dave. Dave Davies and team did a great job on Rainbow Drive last year. The question is there anything planned involving Citrus College? And I guess it's really a question if Citrus College can be of assistance. Other than we did have volunteers last year from APU and Citrus College and a number of other organizations helping us last year fill sandbags. It'll probably be in the form of just volunteers being available from that. If there's anything that Citrus College specifically thinks that they can assist us with, they can certainly contact my office, and we'll have a discussion about those services. Next question is, Goddard Middle School was closed due to the potential mud flows. Is there a plan to relocate the students so they attend school? Actually, I had a conversation just a couple weeks ago with the superintendent. It will sort of depend on what they are hearing from us. If it's just a one-day closure, they probably won't relocate. They'll just close the school. But if it's going to be a long-term process, they are already looking at plans where they may send some of those kids over to Sandburg, and other places for classes. It really depends on what information they're getting from us as to what we're seeing down there. So I do know that Mr. Vors indicated that they would be notifying the parents and giving information as that unfolds should that situation arise. But it really will depend on what they're hearing from us as to what we expect to see out there. What if yellow alert occurs on a trash day, i.e. still not put out trash cans on the street? Well, actually, we did have a situation out there. We will work with Athens, our provider, off that. So if we have a day on yellow, usually what we'll ask is you can go ahead and in most cases put the trash can out, but we ask you to get it off the street right away. If there's a case where we think that there's going to be not enough time between yellow, orange, or some other colors, we will let you know, and we've made arrangements where Athens will make the follow-up, sort of like a holiday schedule. They'll make a day up where we'll get that trash collected. We won't ask you to go too long and smell last Friday's fish dinner still off that. But we will work with you and certainly keep you advised, hence why it's very important that you visit Mr. Lieutenant Williams and his table over there so that we have ways of contacting you so that we can get that information out to you of what's happening or what we're asking you to do or what the follow-up is. Does pickup of debris include a city private road?
Typically, we don't go onto private streets. However, during the cleanup event, we did go onto some streets and help with the cleanup as long as the debris was put out into the street. As a general rule, that would be the homeowner's responsibility, but if we have the time and the resources available, we will try to help.
And also a compliment to LA County, Pat, if you'll take it. LA County did a great job before, during, and after. Thank you. Bear with me. We live below and parallel to the Colby Trail. We've had more wildlife in our yard and on the back hill over the past 8 months. And we've had in the last 15 years combined, mostly families of raccoons, sickly deer, foxes, medium-sized cats. Why? And who do I call if I have a problem? If you have a problem with some animals, we have an animal control. We have Inland Valley Humane Society that operates our animal control processes. They're a great service. They'll help greatly with that. You can get information on our website, how to contact them, and they'll come in and take a look at the situation. Certainly, the reason why we're seeing more wildlife is not only the extreme drought, but just the vegetation, the food sources have all disappeared because of the fire. So they're just naturally looking for easier places to get food and water and other sources, so that forces them down into the urban setting more and more because of that. So until we see that vegetation and those elements turn around, we do expect to see more wildlife in our area here through that. But again, Inland Valley Humane Society does a great job of working with us, so I would encourage you to please call them and they can work through that. The statement was Glencoe Drive, the LA County flood control came up and did try to keep that clear. We will, again, do our best to try to make sure there's access for a variety of reasons. One, if we have to go in, any of our police or fire personnel need to get in, they're going to need access off that. You can actually see a picture of a nice car that got stuck in the mud back there. It didn't take much mud for vehicles to get stuck, And so you can see the impact that water and mud and debris have. That it can really clog up a street pretty fast. So we'll do that probably out of necessity to make sure that our public safety personnel can access the area quickly if the need is through that. So with that, we're going to get right to the questions. And talking about social media, somebody from the other group texted me and so has a question. And so I'm going to sort of ask, because this question sort of came up last year when we were, or last year, there I go, Mark. Back in January when we were having this, you know, why can't we reseed up there? And so here's sort of the question. Is it feasible for planes to drop water on the fire area to mitigate the drought condition and promote natural growth? Does somebody want to take that on? Come on up.
I thought it was going to be as easy as should we seed or not, but now they're augmenting it with water. I cannot think of any place on any sizable area that has been done. I can't honestly say that I've thought a lot about it because my first knee-jerk reaction, which is always got to be careful on that is terribly expensive, terribly ineffective, and a lot of the trouble is when water comes down, it's either going to hit really hard and cause a heck of a lot of erosion and wash the seed off. It may, if you go too high, then it evaporates before it hits the ground, and I'm thinking something like that would cost hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars to do it often enough when you pretty much need to put a sprinkler on with new seed about, you know, especially wildland seeds, at least every 3 or 4 days. And the other thing would be with the drought in California, I can just imagine all the avocado growers and the wine growers and the cherry growers that are ripping out their orchards for us to put water there. So I'm thinking that it's highly unfeasible, but I've never thought about that before. So.
In the event of flash flood and we don't get out in time, what should a one-story resident do if no true inter-room area is an attic or rooftop a safer option? Jim?
I'm trying to conceptualize the question. So my understanding is, what can someone with a one-room, story do in terms of evading a potential mud flow? That's what I understand. Well, hopefully you would have been evacuated before then, because in anticipation, once what we're doing here is warn you and hopefully informing you. If we get to the point where we truly think that you're going to be in a vulnerable circumstance, we're going to ask you to evacuate in advance and remove that potential life loss. And that's our objective here tonight, to ensure that, as well as your welfare and safety. Now, subsequently, if you are in a circumstance where you become trapped and you choose to stay despite the warnings, from there and you call 911, what both police and fire we're going to do is mitigate, working as a collective effort here in the EOC and a unified command, and look at what resources do we have. We currently, during this past February, had our skip loaders, we had these task force, our urban search and rescue personnel that were all deployed and patrolling the areas. But then subsequently, ultimately, we look at what risk is involved. Again, I refer back to that slide that we had the debris coming at going down the street. So now we're going to have to deploy our firefighters as well as potential police officers to try to navigate into that circumstance. That is extremely dangerous. So the best thing to do is on all areas that are vulnerable to flooding is to move to higher ground. If you had a chance to get on top of the roof, that's what we're going to ask you to do. If we can't access you, we always come up with our primary plan, our alternate plan, and an alternate plan may be, if we see you on the rooftop, we're going to have our helicopters come and we'll probably hoist you off that if the structure still is intact and you're able to get up there. So that would be ultimately options. But again, I want to reiterate, hopefully we don't get to the point that you did evacuate and remove yourself from that threat. Thank you.
And maybe just to highlight that picture. I know there's an easier way to get to there, but my technology capability is limited. Just to highlight this, because once this house is damaged, the guys that are digging right there are a gas company. There's a broken gas pipe, and they can't get to the shutoff valve. So I think some of the things we're trying to warn is you've got electrical wires, you've got gas pipes, you've got everything. So how volatile that situation is for us to be sending in rescue crews into that situation. So you can imagine if there's gas leaking in there and fire starts up one of those roof saws, probably not a good mixture. And in '69, we had people where this is one of the less damaged houses where they had mud almost up to the ceiling. We had people literally in a crawl space between the mud and the ceiling. And you can imagine at that time we had, I've been told, about 30 homes that had been damaged. And so we had probably a dozen of these type of things where we didn't know if people were in them or out. And yet we had people in there, and it took us hours to figure that out. So you could be in that situation, that crawl space, for maybe a day or so. And think of maybe if you have a medical problem, diabetes or something like that, where it's important for you to be getting medicine or something, and yet you're stuck in there. It could be some time. So hence why we play and we stress, if we give an evacuation order, be safe, get out. Because this all takes time for us to get in and start that search and rescue process of trying to determine who's in the home, who isn't, and so forth. And it can take quite a while, and unfortunately, we don't want to lose anybody due to that situation from happening. The final question is, what is the plan to clear the catch dams above Rainbow Drive? Check dams.
If the question is clearing behind the check dams, is that the sediment behind the check dams is not going to be removed. The sediment is part of the check dam structure. Did that answer the question?
What if it looks like a ski jump? It goes all the way to where the opening you talked about.
Are you talking about behind the structure, sir? Yeah, that sediment's not going to be removed. That sediment's part of the structure.
A couple of things. Again, I want to reemphasize, we have from our community services here, our staff is taking names on special needs, and I want to help emphasize this. It's really important that neighbor help neighbor. It is extremely important. There are times where maybe a neighbor has recently had surgery and may not be able to help themselves during these things. So it's important for us to get this information so that we can help check in and know if there's a special need out there for our police or fire personnel. Somebody may be physically disabled for a long period of time or just doesn't have the physical strength to move around. So please, if you can help us identify that, if yourself meet one of those criteria, they'll be happy to make sure you're on the list. And if you know of a neighbor, please help that. Again, I want to emphasize it's important to get this information. You can go to www.cityofglendora.org Colby Fire, and we have all the information. We have all the links to these departments on how you can prepare your property, what to do, shelter in place, all those ideas that you've heard tonight, what can happen, and how to make yourself best available of that. Also, it's important that you sign up for our social media venues because that's how we're going to get the information as quick as possible out to you. And with that, we will be around. We have another session at 6 to answer any questions you might have. I want to thank you for coming out today, and be prepared. Thank you very much.